All right, guys. So today I'm going to walk you through how to write your lab report. So we're going to use the same Pearson online simulation that we used for last week's calorimetry lab. Okay. This document is on Blackboard for you. It's the instructions and guide for writing the lab report. Okay. So first things first, okay? Even though the semester is virtual, you're still gonna write a lab report, okay? Good lab reports, concise, but contains all the necessary information. There is such a thing as too much fluff when you're writing, and the point you're trying to get across seems to get lost in that translation. So I'm going to help you with that, okay? You will write lab reports for more than just chemistry. You will write them in microbiology, in zoology, in botany. You might even write one for anatomy and physiology. If you are a science student or a nursing student, you will see these again, okay? And this guide that I've kind of put together for y'all is a overall guide for writing one that you can tailor to each professor when you get there, okay? So same link as last week. You're going to open this simulation, and then you're going to perform these two reactions and record your data, okay? Make sure you calculate your delta H just like you did last week, and you're going to record all that and put it in a table, okay? This will go in your results section, all right? So the schedule for the term got kind of shot out the window because of our snow week. Make sure you're paying attention to Blackboard for updates on due dates. Okay? All right. So you used the Pearson online simulation and ran the two acid-base neutralizations as instructed, and you've got your data. Now it's time to make a lab report, okay? Make sure you break it up into chunks. Each section will also have a section title. And if you break it apart into those chunks of the paper, it's a lot easier to write, okay? So there are 4 main objectives in a lab report, okay? Communicate the procedure. That's going to be your materials and methods. Document what was observed, okay? This is going to be your data. Discuss your results. You're going to do that in your discussion section. And use resources to support your experimental findings. You need a total of 4. They will be in-text citations, as well as a references page. One of these is the Pearson simulation, okay? So you'll need to find 3 scholarly peer-reviewed journal articles to be the rest of your references. And I'll go through those and how to find them and such in a little bit, okay? Formatting, 12-point font, double-spaced or 1.5, either way. Page numbers in the top right corner, except for your cover page. Grammar. Lab reports are written a bit differently than your traditional research paper. Um, pronouns are avoided. Here's an example of how to write a sentence avoiding pronouns. If you need help with this, let me know. Okay. Chemical name. First time you write a chemical, you write the entire name. And then after that, you can just do the chemical formula. An example is up here. So imagine this is the first time I mentioned sodium chloride in my paper. It's written fully there. And then each time after that, I would use NaCl. Okay? That's pretty straightforward. This little blurb about scientific organisms you don't necessarily need for this paper, but if you hold on to this, you can use it for your bio papers, okay? But you don't need that for now. All right, so the rest of this is broken down by section and what is expected to be included in each. Cover page, straightforward. This lab period class is looking for the day and the time. So for example, if you're in my Thursday 2 p.m. lab, that's what you put. Okay. And then the date. This is the date it is turned in or submitted. Okay, this is all centered on the first page. 12-point font. Don't do 36 or 50 and try to fill up the whole page. It's neat, it's crisp, it's clean. Okay. All right, abstract. This is the first section. This is where you start inserting section titles. Okay. You'll have one for the abstract and then each section that follows that. Okay. Some professors don't require you to write an abstract. I would like you to write one if you're in my lab section. It's up to Dr. McGuire whether he wants you to write one. The abstract can be a little bit difficult to write because it's basically doing an overview before you even start your paper. It goes at the beginning of your paper, but you can go back and write it last if you feel like you need to in order to get all of your thoughts straight. The best thing to do to get familiar with abstracts is to actually read papers. Read, the scientific research articles, similar to ones that you'll be using for your references. And that's a good way to get a feel for how an abstract flows and is formatted. Okay, there's 3 basic things you're going to look at. What was the objective of the study? A brief statement of what was done, a brief statement of what was found, and a brief statement of what was concluded. Okay, so it's basically like a conclusion that's at the beginning of the paper that gives your reader a little highlight shot of what your paper will include. Okay, so when you're looking at this and as well as your introduction, okay, think about why is this important? Why do we use calorimetry? Why is it important to understand acid-base neutralization? Things like that. Use your writing tools like making a web if you need to. If you need help with pulling this apart, send me an email and I will help you with teasing that out. Okay, so after your abstract is your introduction. Okay, it's much like an introduction for your other papers. This is going to tell the reader why you did the experiment and includes background information. So, statement of the purpose and scope and general method. So, the purpose of this procedure was to analyze two different acid-base neutralizations utilizing calorimetry in order to gain a better understanding about how these reactions take place. Something along those lines. You do need at least one citation. So you will have in-text citations in your introduction. That support what you state. Okay? Materials and methods. This section describes the experimental procedure. It's kind of like a recipe, but instead of a bulleted list and numbered step-by-step instructions, you talk about things as you use them, okay? And then quantities and time are also referenced. It's written in a way so that someone else could read the materials and methods and copy your experiment. Since the Pearson simulation, okay, was used instead of a lab manual, you do need to create an APA citation for the Pearson simulation because it is a resource that we did not create, and we need to give them credit for that entity. There are lots of resources online that help with formatting these citations. Make sure it's an APA format. Purdue OWL has a good writing lab, and I will make sure that you have access to that so you can get help if you need it. Okay? Materials and methods. Some people break it apart. This is one section, okay? They all go together. This is one section. All right. When you get down to the math part of this, because you're going to calculate delta H, you will briefly mention it, but you don't have to go into great detail because that's what the results section is for, okay? Results section is exactly that, okay? It's the results of your experiment, all the data, okay? So you're going to generate a table, okay? The section is relatively short and does not require a whole lot of text, but it needs to be formatted correctly, okay? Whether you choose a table or a graph or another way to represent data. It all needs a title. It needs to be properly labeled with units, okay, units of measure. And then at the bottom, there will be a 1 to 2 sentence description. Even if there's a problem with your data or anything like that, we include all that. Don't worry about pictures because we're not taking pictures. This is really good when your biology classes and or if we were doing a procedure where there was a color change and things like that. So an example of a table, okay? You're going to have a title, table 1. You can add something after this if you want. You're going to have your data for run 1 and for run 2. Make sure that there are titles and column titles, okay? And then you fill in your numbers. There are tools in Word and in both Google Documents that help you with generating tables, okay? And then at the bottom of it, there's going to be a little annotation. You can create this using a text box, and it should look similar to this in your paper. And then you'll put the table title here at the beginning of this, and then say what the table contains. Table 1 above contains all the data collected during this procedure. Notice, and then you will, write something about what is important about this data. It's a 1 to 2 sentences. It doesn't have to be very long. It gives the reader an overall kind of little blurb about this is my data and this is what it shows. Okay? If you look at how tables are formatted, when you're looking at your resources, it'll kind of give you an image of what we're looking for. We know that it will not be as fancy or as detailed as the ones in the research papers that you're looking at, but it kind of gives you a sense of the formatting direction, okay? So after your results, you discuss the results, discussion section, okay? This is where you take your results and apply them to either other topics or procedures. Okay, this section you will have outside resources that support your findings or support a topic that you want to talk about that goes along with acid-base neutralization and goes along with calorimetry and energy and those things that we're looking at, okay? So there are 3 main parts to your discussion, 3 things that are important. You summarize the important findings of your observations, okay? You talk about your data and what it means and if it has any implications on day-to-day life, okay? This is where we go, and that leads into number 2, suggest the theoretical implications. Think big picture. Is there a broader topic that this ties into? Okay, and then the third point is think about future research or how this can be tied into something else that even you could look at as you get further along in your lab experience. Excuse me. Conclusion is just like a conclusion for any other paper, what was done, how the results how and the results and your conclusions of the experiment. It's similar to the abstract, but don't just copy and paste and use the exact words. It typically has one reference or in-text citation. Okay. Conclusion. Now, references. The references section is its own page and it has the exact same title of references. This is a listing of the public works you cited in the text of your paper. Okay, this is where you take all your in-text citations and give them a list on the references page. Okay, it's in APA format. If you need help with that, I'm going to give some resources, but it does have hanging first line indentions. They're typically done in alphabetical order. Instead of referencing software, we're going to make sure we reference the Pearson simulation. Okay, we have to give them credit for that. Okay. If you need help with finding references or formatting references, send me an email and let me know. Okay. After I get done with this, though, I am going to show you some ways to find references. Okay. You do need a total of 4 references and citations for this lab, okay? One is going to be the Pearson calorimetry simulation, and then you need at least 3 peer-reviewed scholarly articles, okay? Good sites for reputable resources, first and foremost, is the Concordia library access to databases. JSTOR and EBSCO are 2 good ones that have lots of science and lots of technical journal articles. If you find one somewhere else, like Google Scholar or somewhere like that, make sure you are super critical of, is this from a legitimate peer-reviewed source, or is this something that someone just posted based off of their own tangent? Okay. After you complete your lab report, especially your rough draft, okay? After you complete your rough draft, have it peer-reviewed. There are several different options. You don't have to edit it immediately, but take your rough draft, see a tutor, see the writing center, or visit tutor.com via Blackboard. There is a Dropbox to have papers reviewed. I think they even call it a locker. It's typically done within 24 hours. Okay, save a screenshot of that and attach it at the end of your paper. If you get stuck or get really, really confused, send me an email, amanda.jordan@concordia.edu. I'd be more than happy to help you with teasing apart some of those ideas or with clarification on instructions. Okay, so this is the rubric that is used when your paper is graded. Your rough draft will have lots of suggestions and edits and things like that on it, but that is not necessarily what's going to impact your grade. We're looking for completeness. Did you submit a complete written rough draft? Okay, is it complete, and are all of these things present? And then did you have it reviewed by the tutor or the writing center? Okay, the writing center sends me emails saying, hey, your student came in and I reviewed their lab report. That's how I know if you went to the writing center. And then if you use tutor.com, just take a print screen image showing where they were giving you edits and suggestions and attach that with your paper. I will then review your lab report, or Dr. McGuire will if you're in his class. I will write you notes. They'll either be on a sheet like this, or I will make the notations on your paper in Blackboard. If you have any questions about any of the notations that I make, please reach out. Okay, then you will be asked to submit a final draft. Okay, this is the rubric for your final draft. See how it's much more detailed. Okay, but it does still include a lot of the same things. It's just broken down by section. Okay, what's complete, what's not. So you know that you need to look at this column whenever you are trying to figure out or want more clarification on what needs to be included. Trust me, we completely understand that this is the first time you have written one of these lab reports. Okay, so now I'm gonna share my screen with you, and I'm going to show you how to find some resources. So you go to the Concordia website and click on library. Okay, we want to go down to Jumpstart and look at their databases. I typically search by subject. That is completely up to you. Okay, science and technology, or reference, or agriculture and environmental science are some good places for you to start. All right. EBSCO and JSTOR are two good options. You may have to look in one, you may wind up looking in both. It's all up to how you search for things in your paper, okay? Make sure that you are looking at scholarly, peer-reviewed journals, okay? So let's just look at calorimetry. You will have to look at the titles and see if it ties into what we looked at with acid-base neutralization and things like that. But, okay, here's one article that talks about calorimetry. You can pull up the full text. Okay, scroll through the abstract. Remember, like I said before, the abstract is kind of different to write, and the easiest way to get a sense of what your abstract is supposed to look like is through reading them. Okay. Contains an introduction. It contains methods and materials. Some people break it up. I want it one section. Okay. Results and discussion. They have a table. Okay. There's table 1. They have their description at the top instead of where I want it at the bottom, but see how it's neat and very clean. Okay, say you wanted to use this paper as a reference. When you use the library database, that is available to you. You go to the right side of the screen. There's a little tab that says Cite. And here's what an APA citation would look like for this article. You can simply copy and paste this onto your references page. Okay? Now for in-text citations, those are a little bit different. Okay, so those in-text citations, I will send you a link to Purdue OWL, which has some good ways of formatting those, but you have a couple of different options. Okay, in-text citations are used when you paraphrase someone else's work. Okay, there are a couple different options to do this. You can either put it at the beginning of paraphrase, which includes something along the lines of as seen in Jones 2011, and then you would paraphrase here. Okay? You have to be very careful with this one. If this is put at the very beginning of a paragraph, it's assumed then that that entire paragraph is attributed to that one source. You can have writing before it, okay? And then start this. Typically what you would do is talk about your experiment or procedure or results, and then here's your source that you want to use that aligns with what you're saying, and then you paraphrase what they said, okay? Just make sure that you're careful about placement. Don't put this at the very beginning of a paragraph, okay? Your second choice is at the end of paraphrase, okay? You have your paraphrasing here, and then you simply just do open quote, parentheses, excuse me, and then here, period, okay? Same as this one. This one also has a catch to it. If you put this at the very, very end of your paragraph, that means that you're attributing that entire paragraph to that paraphrase. So we typically use them in the middle, okay? And you would then right after it, okay? So don't put this one at the very beginning unless you're taking an entire paragraph of paraphrase, and don't use this at the very end unless you're taking an entire paragraph of paraphrasing, which typically is not recommended, okay? You need to make your statement about your data, use the paraphrase to tie it back in, and then cite. Or you paraphrase, cite, and then add your data, okay? Not at very beginning or very end of a paragraph, just not. Okay. If you need help with where to stick these and how to do it, I am going to include a link to the Purdue OWL Writing Center, and they have some really good resources on how these paraphrases are formatted if you need help from there. All right, so I've gone over the instructions for the procedure using the calorimetry lab. I've gone over the guide for how to write a lab report. I've shown you how to find resources and showed you how to format them and how to do paraphrasing. If you need any more help at all, please reach out. This is not meant to be really, really hard. We know that this is most likely the first time you've written a document like this. So reach out to me or Dr. McGuire via email if you have any questions or concerns. And the Writing Center is also a very valuable resource. I will make sure that all of these get uploaded for you so that you have some instructions. Okay? All right, guys. I hope you have a great day. Happy writing. Remember to break it up into smaller chunks. It'll be much, much less stressful. Reach out if you need help, guys. See you next time.